How's it going? Martin here, and core conversations for Friday. A couple things to talk about this morning. So excited to have Nina on, and I just wanted to chat for a minute as people are starting to roll in about something that just brought to my attention today as I was on a few different guys' websites. So check out Akil, and also I did bad job of getting these guys' names right out of the gate, but I'll put it in the comments section because they brought to my attention something that has been going on for a while. And here in the region of Peel, I'm in Mississauga, and the Peel Regional Police tasered a gentleman by the name of Clive Mensah. And Clive Mensah was a young man who had some mental health issues. They tasered him 6 times and he died. Now, this is something that's happened, and the Peel Regional Police have kept quiet on the whole situation, haven't mentioned in the media, haven't done anything to discipline the officers, tried to keep it quiet. And in light of everything that's been happening in our world, the family of Clive have come forward and say this is what happened 10 months ago and nothing has really been done about it. So I'm curious to find out what has happened with it to date. I really want to know, get some updates. So as I start to reach out and research it this morning, I went to do a post and mention Peel Regional Police in the post. And this is what I found out. I'm just going to try it, obviously. Check this out. So I go to mention the region of Peel Regional Police in a comment showing where they have tasered and killed a black person with a mental health issue 10 months ago. Something happened in November. And when I go to mention them, I realize that we're not allowed to mention the Peel Regional Police. We're not allowed to mention it. We can't bring mention of them. They must have so many hate people and just things that happen, so they're trying to control it by snuffing out that voice on Instagram. So I went to Twitter and did the exact same thing. The point though is, I'm bringing this up and bringing this to your attention because there are so many things that happen, around the world, and we don't think that it's happening in Toronto. Don't think it's happening in Canada. Here's a picture of the gentleman. And here's a comment saying that the police cruisers actually blocked the roadway to the scene. Paramedics had to park 15 meters, what's that, like 30, whatever, like 45 feet, almost 100 feet away from it, just to be able to get to the situation. So it was a totally avoidable death of this guy. Right? He had no weapons. And it's called because he was singing as he was jogging in the neighborhood. And 3 of those officers have not been punished. And this is what happens when you try and call them out. I want to say that I've had nothing but positive experiences with the police. There have been times I've been pulled over and there's a racial profiling that happened, but I've also had some experiences where they've extended grace to me. So I'm not going to slam individual officers within the Peel region because there are people that are good. The definition though of systemic racism or institutional racism is a form of racism that's embedded within the normal practice of society. So I can sit here with a police officer and know that, he isn't personally a racist. However, the normal practice of the society or the organization he in is systemically racist. And by definition, that means that this system and this normal practice of racism that's embedded within the culture leads to things like discrimination in the criminal justice system. It leads to discrimination when it comes to employment, to healthcare, to education, all these different things, because the system itself is racist. So the officers might not have been, but the system is, and that's why there's still silence on something that happened 10 months ago. It's just not that important to them. So I'm calling them out. I'm calling out the Peel Regional Police on this. What's happening with it? I'm calling you out for keeping voices silent on it. And I really feel like this is something that needs to be addressed, not because it's a climate we're in, but because somebody has died. So that's my rant on that, and I'm gonna follow up on that. Much like the Peel Regional education system, the Peel District School Board with their anti-racism stuff. There's a lot of stuff that's happening in our world that we can't just pull ourselves out of. I can't just extract myself from the society. It's right here in my midst, right here in Mississauga, and we have to call it out. There needs to be change. So I'm just saying that that's something that's happening, that has been happening, that's been silenced. Bring it to the front, and we need to deal with that. All right, so that being said, we're gonna change gears, and in the same way, it's always a tough thing for us as Black people to be in a space where we have to be venting about things that are happening, but then also find a way to take care of ourselves. We have to stay strong in this battle. We have to, pass a baton to people who have that strength. We have to cheer on others that are doing great stuff. So I want to temper that message of frustration with the importance of simply living our lives in a way that brings us joy, that gives us strength, that gives us energy to give other people energy. So that's what's going on in this corner of the world. But our Pilates is the thing that we have. Fitness is the thing that we have that helps us to take care of ourselves and to be strong in the midst of the battle. And I've just connected with Nina over the last little while and just seen some of the great things that she's doing. And as much as we want to talk about life and taking care of ourselves, she has a great post up there which is going to lead us to talking just about authenticity in the way that we present ourselves. So I'm going to bring her on right now, and we are going to get this conversation going. I want to send a quick shout out to Uni and to Sonia for our Black Girl Pilates group that is getting ready to roll. It is game time for them with their conference this weekend. So that's exciting. Also to Carmen, who was on yesterday. So Carmen was on talking about the Strive Leadership Conference that is also rolling out today. So we got some really exciting things that are going on in this world to lift us up and to give us that strength. Also, the other day, I was talking to everyone here about doing some live classes, some virtual classes. So I invited some people to do that. And Lisa is joining me right after this for a virtual private. So we're going to flies on right after the core conversation. So let's get that going.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Great. I can hear you, but I can't see you yet.
Yeah, it's frozen. So let's hold on a second
Okay.
and see if that ends up connecting. If not, I may have to disconnect and reconnect.
That's the
So,
beauty of live feeds, right?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then yesterday when I check everything, everything's working perfectly. And this morning, it's a different story. So let me see if disconnect. Do you want me to disconnect and reconnect?
Sure. Why not? Let's give it a try. Cancel on this end. Try that again.
Okay.
Still frozen.
Still frozen. All right.
I feel like we're on a telethon right now.
I know.
We have a caller from California, and
Still frozen. All right.
I feel like we're on a telethon right now.
I know.
We have a caller from California, and
Still frozen. Yeah.
DJ Ready Fox, what's going on, man? So just trying to get Nina on here. I'm going to try her one more time.
I just changed it up and reconnected from the iPad. All right, now it's working.
There you go. How's it going?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So good to have you finally.
Thank you for having me.
I love these conversations, and just like we were saying on one of our texts earlier, just the connections that we're getting within the community, and just seeing everybody that is out there that's doing great work. So really cool.
Yeah, definitely. That's the one thing I think that this whole shutdown and stay-at-home orders has given us. It's kind of given us, I think, instructors a little bit more time for ourselves and to reach out to our Pilates community, nationwide and worldwide, and reestablish different connections or find new ones. So
Yeah.
that, I think, for me personally, the one upside of this whole quarantine. And here in California, our studios are closed again. So I'm just taking it as a positive of, great, now I have more time for me and to focus on other things and reach out
Yes.
to other teachers and,
Right.
focus on that.
Have you been taking a lot of online classes from people?
I have, yeah. I still do my weekly lessons with my instructor here in LA,
Okay.
virtually. And then I've taken a few classes, with Cecilia in Australia,
Yes.
Maria, who's down in Virginia, Elaine from New York,
Mhm.
Carrie Russo, who's locally here too. So I'm just kind of,
Right.
taking a bunch of different classes and pulling what I need out of those.
Yeah. It's so like, and that's a perfect example of this quarantine world, is that like you just mentioned those names. I knew exactly who you're talking about. And I think 6 months ago, I wouldn't have known any of them, right? Like they're
Yeah.
all like your digital friends. And these conversations I had with Cecile, for example, were just so genuine, so authentic. You feel like you're just close friends with these people that you've never seen before.
Yeah. And I'm trying to encourage my clients to do the same. Of course, it's important during this time that we stay connected to our clients, but I'm telling them too, since you can't be in the studio, take this opportunity for yourself to try different teachers and, experience Pilates in different ways.
Absolutely.
Some are
Yeah.
open to, some are not. So, everyone's kind of got their own thing, but some of
Right.
them have done enjoying it.
Yeah. Well, I always said that, in the personal training world, like personal training is personal, right? Like you get to a place where you're comfortable with the person, you trust them, you're used to the way that they teach, they coach, they touch, and then you don't want anything else, right? But there's so
Yeah.
many people out there that are so good, so much better than me, so much better than you, that like it may be
Right.
just the right connection for them and it's out there somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And I actually kind of have a rule at my studio with clients. And again, some of them like it, some of them don't, is I actually make them take sessions with my other instructors every once in a while.
Great. Yeah.
Just because it gives them a different perspective sometimes. And even though we're all trained the same, we all teach a little bit differently.
Mhm.
And so I always tell them every once in a while, I'll make them take lessons with someone else just to get a different perspective and a different feel.
Yes. Yeah. Do they go kicking or screaming, or are they like usually pretty open to that?
Usually they're pretty open to it because I kind of establish it right from the beginning. And I think a lot of it too is how you present it to them.
Right.
If
Right.
you present it to them as, I'm doing this for you, for your benefit, I think this will be great for you to work with, this person or that person for this reason, then they're open to it. So a lot of times it is how you present it to them.
Yeah, not
You
like
know,
I
if
have a nail appointment, so you find somebody else. You can't like drop it on that. Yeah,
Yeah, right. It's like I'm doing this for, your benefit. So
yeah,
if you kind of, present it to them that way, then they're open to it. And, I think it's great.
great. Before we dive too deep, can you just tell everyone like your name, your business, and what
Oh,
you do? Yeah.
uh, Nina Narejko, and my studio is Body Redefined Pilates, and I'm in Rancho Cucamonga, California.
Hmm.
I've been out here for 7 years and originally from Chicago.
Okay, nice. So you have like a full service studio, or is that in your home, or?
It's a studio.
Okay,
I did the home studio thing for a while when I first moved out here.
okay.
Because when I first moved out here, I didn't have any friends, I didn't have any professional networks. I'm about an hour out of LA where most of our Pilates community is. So just to kind of get things going and build up and not be overwhelmed with expenses, I did the home studio for about a good 5 years.
5 years. Okay. Let's talk shop on the business side. I love hearing when Pilates instructors actually have some good business acumen.
a lot of times in this world, because we like Pilates and we like just helping people, that warm fuzzy side gets a lot of attention, but the actual like managing a business side doesn't,
Yeah.
right?
Right, I know. And there's moments where I remember Romana used to say, don't have your own studio, always work for someone else. And
Mm,
there's days where I'm like, oh, I totally understand why she said that. It's a lot of work behind the scenes.
Dana was saying that too. I don't know why we have it in our minds that the gold star is to own your own sprawling studio. I've had so many people on here like, don't do it. like, like, so why do you think that people think that that is like you've arrived when you have a studio?
Exactly what you said. People think you've arrived. I've done it. I've met the highest caliber of what being instructor is, and that is running my own business. Um, but even out of your home, and I've noticed a lot more studios kind of transitioning to home studios because it's a lot
Mm,
less stressful.
yeah.
You don't have the same expenses and everything like that. Um, and so I think a lot of people just think, like you said, I've arrived. That's the highest
Yes.
caliber of what we do is opening up your own space.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and we'll see the comments starting to pop up here on the screen as well. So I have Michael Brown, who was on before. Hi, Michael. I think it's a great way to get clients to other teachers is I'm doing group classes with insert name here on Wednesday. I'd love for you to join us. Yeah, so we build each other up, right? And we continue to promote each other's classes. So that's really,
Yeah.
really good. Now, for yourself, did you own a studio when you were in Chicago first?
No, I didn't. I worked at Pilates Connection.
Okay.
It's owned by Rhonda Salenza. It's the studio that Juanita Lopez teaches out of.
Okay.
So that's where I was when I was out in Chicago.
Nice. And then moved, got your studio here, and then what made you decide to dive into studio ownership?
Well, I mean, the fortunate thing is there's no other classical Pilates studio around me. So I didn't
Yes.
have, any competition or anyone else doing it. And I thought it was important to bring to this area real, authentic, classical Pilates. I felt like, people in this area were really missing it. And I did the home studio for a while. And eventually it got to a point where I felt like I didn't have separation of personal life and studio life because you
Yes.
end up taking on a lot more clients because you're like, well, I'm home anyways. I can just pop downstairs and teach this client. And then
Yes.
you feel like you never leave your house, you never leave your work. And then also too, when it comes to bringing on other teachers, my studio was set up in a way where it didn't have its own separate entrance. It was just downstairs in our living room. And so it was hard to have other teachers teaching there while I'm like sitting in my kitchen.
Right.
So,
Yes.
so it was just time to have my home back being my home,
Mhm.
um, and my work being my work.
Yes.
And the benefit that I always tell everyone of doing a home studio, if I have the ability to do so, is it gave me all the time that I needed to find the perfect space, to really assess budget, to really look at rents,
Yes.
to really plan and not jump into anything
And not
because I have.
rush.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. I'm finding that here too with my space, in that um, this is a space where I did my personal training before and still do. So now having a dedicated space within that same space is something that people are familiar with. Gave me time to find the right equipment and to do different classes with different instructors and just find like what my niche was going to be within our whole world. So yeah, you're right. That's a great point about just giving you time to find out exactly how you want it to be is key. I
Yeah.
wrote down basically 3 points here, which almost could be your calling card for when is the right time to start your business. One was the need, recognizing the need of the area. There was no classical Pilates in that area. Two was boundaries, recognizing that there needs to be boundaries for your own mental health and your own sanity within your space. And then three was scaling. If you wanted to have other people coming in, how do you scale your business, by having other instructors at off times and all those different things? If you're limited in how big you can scale your business, then it's time to grow it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And again, I think it would work for a home studio if you can have it be totally separate from your home. You know, I know some people that have home studios where it's a
Yep.
separate entrance, completely separate build out, so they can have other instructors coming and going.
Hmm.
And, you know, they're not even there or have a presence at all.
Yes.
But then again, the important thing is, you know, budgeting, right? Because I mean, this is a perfect time to see that when things are going well in the economy, we do
Hmm.
really well. When things are
Yes.
not, we are one of the first things that people get rid of. I don't care how
Yes.
much you love your Pilates, when it's a budget thing, you start eliminating things that are not really solely necessary to survive.
Right.
And that's one of the things that, you know, people eliminate. So you
Hmm.
have to, I always tell everybody, you know, go a little bit smaller than you think you need a space into. Because if you go too big and your expenses are too much, you're just going to stress yourself out, you know, trying to
Yes.
make it.
Right. Exactly. So then what's your conversation with clients who figure that the best thing to do is pull back on their fitness in this stressful time?
So I try to give them resources for that. Like right now, especially with having to go Zoom and virtual and some people having to pull back is I have them when they're here in the studio, and this is something new that I started recently, is I have them set up their phone or their iPad or whatever they want and record the
Mm.
mat portion of their lesson.
Yes.
So now you have your specific mat workout that you can do anywhere, anytime at home. Even if you
Perfect.
have to take a break from coming to the studio for a few months,
Hmm.
you at least have that to maintain it and keep up with it on your own.
Yes. Great.
Um, you
That's a
know,
great
because there are a
solution.
lot of great sources, you know, people will go on YouTube or other, you know, workout channels or, you know, websites that have Pilates workouts, but it's not specific to them. And a lot of clients forget what their modifications are, what their adjustments are, which exercises they should omit. And so letting them tape their own lessons and then replay them at home and do them at their own convenience really helps a lot. And then
That's
it
great.
also gets to do Pilates more in a cost effective way. Because I don't know about you, but I sometimes tell clients, you know, if I didn't teach Pilates, I really couldn't afford to do Pilates that much. Okay. It
Right.
gets
Right.
expensive.
It does.
So
It
that's
does.
a nice way to tell clients, you know, I want you to do your Pilates 4 or 5 times a week if possible.
Hmm.
And having your recording of your mat work is going to allow you to do that, even if
Sure.
you can only afford to be in the studio once or twice a week.
Can I play like devil's advocate for a second? So what if I was to say to you, Nia, that's a bad idea because you're going to lose clients now.
You know what? You don't. And think about even us as instructors. We
Hmm.
always have to continue taking lessons and being in the presence and being around with at least once a week, once every 2 weeks, taking a lesson from our own instructors.
Yes.
You know, I don't know about you, but I don't work as hard and push myself as hard or notice the right things when I work out by myself as I do when I take my lessons with Trish.
Yes.
So clients don't actually leave. They actually, more often than not, I find that they actually appreciate it because they go,
Yes.
wow, she really doesn't care just about business and money.
Hmm.
She really cares about me getting the most out of it.
Yes.
So in a weird way, it actually works in your favor because clients then see that you really care about what Pilates is going to give them instead of just running a business.
Yes. So true. I used to say that my clients become acquaintances, my acquaintances become friends, my friends become family. And the longer they're with you, you know, you have friends that you see every day, and then you have friends that you see once a month, and then you have friends that you see like once a year. They're still
Yeah.
friends, and you still have that connection. So I think it's the dynamics of the relationship that changes,
Mm-hmm.
but you still have that connection.
Yeah. Yep, definitely. I mean, and I don't know about you, but sometimes you're the first person to find out about important things going on in your clients' lives. You know, I'm sometimes the
Yes.
first one to find out if they're pregnant or they're
Yes,
getting engaged,
exactly.
this, because I mean, they're in here so much.
Yeah.
And, you know, Pilates connects to their lives so much. It's a great positive experience for the most part.
Right. Yeah. That's funny. That makes me laugh because I mean, it's so weird. Like, picture like me as a guy having this conversation with my client, and she's telling me that she's pregnant and she hasn't told her mother yet. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, you get the information so early in the game because it's crucial
Yep.
to what you're doing right now. But you're just like, okay, I won't tell anybody. Thanks for sharing. You know,
Yeah, and don't tell anyone. I'm like, who am I going to tell?
who am
Like,
I gonna
who am
tell?
I?
Like, yeah. That's so, I always laugh when that happens. 'Cause I'm like, okay, I won't tell anyone that I don't know that you know, but sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
And
it's
then
so,
getting back to your point that you made about, the whole thing when it's stressful running a business and doing a business. I mean, and sometimes we get overwhelmed. Sometimes you're like, why did I even pick to start a studio? Why am I even doing this? Like, I want to just set this place on fire. Like, we all have those moments. And one time my boyfriend made a good point. He works in real estate and property management. So
yeah.
a lot of his day is spent with unhappy people, unhappy clients, clients complaining. And, he made a good point that when I have frustrating days, I remind myself of what he said one time. He said, what you do gives people joy. It helps their life. You never have a client walk in complaining and yelling at you and being unhappy. He's like, so no matter how stressed you get, just remember that you do something that people look forward to and it brings them happiness
Mm,
and they're happy to be there. You don't get clients, I think for the most part, I don't know, maybe sometimes you do. But for the most part, he's like, you don't get that frustrated, annoyed, angry, unsatisfied client. People
right.
want to be there. And so
Yes.
I remind myself of that during the times where things get hard. It's like, yeah, we do. We bring a lot to people's lives and they all love
Hmm.
being here, come in here happy. So, sometimes you got to have those days where you remind yourself and you're like, okay, they love being here. I'm doing a good thing.
Yes. I'm not going to burn this place down.
Right.
Yes, well, I mean, there are people that come in that I call them like court ordered people. Like they've had a conversation with their doctor, and their doctor's like, "Listen, if you don't start exercising, you'll be dead in 3 years. So
Yeah.
start." So those are the people that come in dragging their feet, and they leave happier, but like there's still some reluctance, and we have this
Yeah.
sliding scale of how much you like or dislike an exercise, and there's
Mhm.
this that relation. But you're right, like we are brokers of joy to some degree with everything that we're doing here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when it comes to that whole thing with clients, their personalities, they're happy to be here or not. I always tell my instructors and other instructors, the biggest part of efficiently running a studio is really getting into the psyche of the clients. We all
Yes.
know how to teach the exercises. If you've gone through a program, it's almost like teaching Pilates is the easy part,
Right.
but it's that relationship building and that connection. So I have a client who's like a perfect example of that. When he comes in here in the mornings for his lessons, he's fresh, he's ready to go. When he comes in on Thursday nights after work, he's usually in a bad mood. He's not connecting. He's not even listening to me. I give him a
Hmm.
correction. You tell his face is all like, I don't even want to be here. And he told me one time, he's like, half the time on Thursday nights, I just want to like turn the car back around and go back home. And
Yes.
so on the days where I have him when he's fresh, I told him this, and it's funny because he never picked up on it, and he's a psychiatrist. And I said, did you notice that on the days that you're fresh and in the mornings, I actually teach you, and the other days I don't? And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, in the mornings, you're open, you're alert, you're ready to go. You're learning, you take my cues, you take my corrections. On the days that you come in and I can tell your mood's not there, I just get you moving and flowing, pick
Hmm.
exercises that kind of help de-stress you, that just realign you, and just
Yes.
kind of let you move how you need to move.
Yes.
So I think that's a big thing too of running a successful studio is you have to give your client not just what they need physically through Pilates, but what they need emotionally and psychologically when they're in here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's so much in that. Like my background is in counseling, so I get that on
Yeah,
so many different levels, right?
yeah.
And it's so funny. I'm wondering, well, I don't think my wife is on right now, but if you see Alex pop on, I'm sure she'd chime in at this point because one day this week she was in for a lesson and we had a debate. Like we're actually at a point where she was frustrated and she was in tears and we're going back and forth because she had so much stress in her life that that teaching session should have been a moving session. So she wasn't
Yeah.
catching my cues. She wasn't understanding the questions I was asking her. She was interpreting them a different way, getting frustrated because, and like this whole thing just came this vicious cycle because I was a perfect example of someone who had so many stressors in their psychological being at that moment that they weren't receiving the
Hmm.
teaching, and that should have been just a time to just move and let that stress dissipate, but instead it
Yeah.
was like, well, trying to get her to think, trying to get her to understand something, trying to get her to follow a cue, And it just became this like this thing that just escalated, and it becomes a frustrating moment when we don't pick those things up. So that was a great learning point for me as a coach, to always do that. And, you know, in full transparency, because it's my wife, I figure, oh, she's fine. I can read her cues.
Oh yeah, no,
You know,
I don't teach my boyfriend Pilates. No, we've tried it. Don't worry.
see, no, we do like this. I think we've got that down, but I think there was a moment of comfort that if it was, you know, one of my regular clients, so to speak, I would have been more conscientious to pick up on those cues and, okay, stop. What's going on today? How are you doing? Okay, you went out last night.
Yeah.
How are you feeling? Or, you know, this COVID thing for the last 4 months, how have you adjusted? I would have probably asked some more questions. And I think going into, you know, my next session with her, even if it seems patronizing, we're going to have a question and answer period before we get moving, just to understand where she's at.
And I ask my clients when they come in here, there's 2 questions I always ask them. How was your day and how are you feeling today? And that right there will tell me what kind of session we're having today.
Yes.
You know, that's the important thing. You always have to ask them that, because it will really structure that lesson. And kind of going back to too, you know, the Psyche, and one of my instructors and I were talking about this, is maybe putting something together for us instructors on some kind of workshop or something where we really focus on that element of how to sell and connect and build relationships with clients other than just the exercises. Because a lot of our training programs teach us the exercises,
Right.
but they don't teach us what I call, literally, it's almost like a sales job, and you really have to know how to connect to them and do that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think it's important to find that, because sometimes too with clients, I tell my instructors too, you know, watch their body language, watch their faces. That will tell you a lot about what they're getting out of their Pilates work. Some clients are motivated when you give them exercises. Like I had to do this with one of my clients who's a guy, ex-soccer player, athletic, didn't really understand the concepts of Pilates at all. So if I gave him a simple basic lesson, he would never come back. So I threw everything in the kitchen sink at him and got him doing advanced exercises right off the bat, even though he didn't understand them. But he felt like, oh, this is hard. I'm doing something.
This is hard. I'm getting somewhere. Yeah.
And as he started to understand the concepts of Pilates, we actually started to scale back his lessons and go more into technique. But if I had made it more just a basic technique session and keep perfect form, I would have lost him because he just didn't understand. So you have to know, you know, what client is challenged. Are they understanding it? Are you going to push them too hard? Is it going to be too much for them? Also too, like I said, some clients, you know, you give them things that they will fail at in Pilates and they go, okay, that's going to keep me coming back. I'm going to get that one. That's my motivation. And there's other clients that if you do that with them,
you'll never see them again.
And you'll never see them.
Right.
So that I think is a huge important thing of, you know, retaining clients. Yes, you want to give them good Pilates, but the path of how you structure it and deliver it is super important.
Absolutely. And if I could just add to something, a little glare there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That's better. Okay.
Nice. So yeah, so one of the things also to add to what you're saying about the 2 questions you asked, like, what were the 2 questions again, first of all?
How was your day and how are you feeling today?
Okay. Yes. So it's one thing to ask those 2 questions, and I'm sure that you do this, but I just want to state the obvious. Listening to the answer is more important than asking the question.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely.
So what are you listening for in their answers?
One of them is just their tone of voice and the energy with which they say it. So that will tell me if they're tired, if they're frustrated. You know, sometimes if you go, how was your day? And they're like, oh, you know, and other days, oh, it was great. I did this, I did that. I feel really good. I feel energized. So that will, you know, oftentimes tell you. And the funny thing is too, and I've learned this from my instructor, Trish, on days where you walk in and you're tired, I actually give them a really kick-ass energizing session. Because a lot of people think, oh, if they're tired, we're going to work a little bit slower and smoother. No. Do the exact opposite. You want to put energy and life back into them. If they're walking in and going, oh, I'm tired. I don't feel so great. Can we just stretch today? No, we're going to make you work and, you know, put energy back into you. And that's something that Trish has taught me, because I noticed she would do that with me. Maybe like, oh, I feel so tired today. And it's like, I would have a session where she kicked my ass.
Yeah.
And I would feel so much better.
Right. And those times, though, I think it needs to be said too, in those moments when you do that, it may be one of those times where you're not being fussy with cues. Like you're keeping them
Yeah.
safe, but you're just letting them move, because the second you start to cue them in those moments, they're like, ah, that's why I didn't want to come today, blah, 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 blah. But if you just let them flow with it and just get a good sweat and just move, then they feel better, because they actually have to think about being present in the movement instead of getting themselves clouded with other stuff to think about when in those
Yeah.
moments. Yeah, no, I agree
Definitely.
with you 100%.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So what else
That
are you
makes
listening for?
I think another thing that's important too when it comes to structuring client sessions, and I always tell my instructors, I think we all have it kind of on our intake forms, right? Is what do you do daily activities? Do you have any
Yes.
injuries and ailments? What are your goals? And I always tell them the most important thing to look at on that intake form is what are your goals and reasons for being here?
Yes.
Because when you give them a session, you want to make sure that when they leave, that was accomplished.
Yes.
Right? Newer instructors always answer, oh, the most important thing is injuries, so you keep them safe. The most important thing is you actually give them what they're here for and
Yes.
let them feel that.
Yes.
And the second most important thing is, what are your daily activities? What do you do? Because Pilates needs to connect to that. It should help you do what it is that you do on a daily
Yes.
basis more efficient.
That really is what Pilates is for. Like Pilates isn't to become a good Pilates practitioner. It's to be better at the things you're passionate about doing in your everyday life.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And a lot of my, for example, older clients, they do a lot of stuff with their grandkids. And I've, noticed now that it's like people are having kids later in life, which means people are becoming grandparents later in life,
Right.
which means it's harder to keep up with those little grandkids that you want to play with. And so a lot of my clients that are grandmas and like their grandkids are their world, we tailor their Pilates sessions so they can efficiently play with and enjoy time with their grandkids.
Yes.
And so, I had one client one time was telling me, she's like, I went to the beach with my grandkids and I kept up with them the whole time. And one of them had shoulder issues. And these are the little things that make me love Pilates. And she had a hard time just picking up and holding her grandkids. And she came in all excited one day and was like, I picked up my grandbaby and I was flinging him up and down and playing with him and my shoulder didn't bother me. And to me, that's what Pilates is about. It's not
Absolutely.
that, oh, I'm going to get lean and tone and I'm going to have Pilates abs. No, it's getting to spend time enjoying what you're doing and with the people you enjoy doing it. That to me is Pilates.
Absolutely. My friend says that's your podium finish. Like not everyone's training for the Olympics, not everyone's trying to get a six-pack, but like for that lady, her podium finish, her gold medal finish is being able to play with a grandchild and not be icing, for the next 3 days because she had to run around with a child, right? So yeah, I love that. And around our goals too, how much time do you spend diving into their why?
Their why, quite a bit, it's really important. And then because that's what's really going to structure their session, why they're here. And again, too, if I have clients who, and I think we all get them, the clients who are there for the aesthetic, right? They want to really tone up and lean out and lose weight and do this, nothing outworks a bad diet. So I actually know a really great local nutritionist that I refer them to because I tell them straight off the bat, I'm honest, if you're looking to lose weight, you can't outwork a bad diet, but I do have a referral for someone to go to, who will help with that. And then you kind of, structure both together. And so, I think that's another important thing is when you have clients where their why has something to do outside of the scope of practice of what we do or what Pilates will give them. Have local referrals or places or people that you work with where you can recommend working with this person to put a more complete package together.
Well, what you're saying there is such a bold and confident statement. I think like sometimes we diminish that, but the reality is that when you are confident in your business that you can refer out, when you're confident enough in your business that you can give them a video and send them on their way, that actually elevates you as a professional because you're showing, once again, that concern for their overall success, even though it's outside of the scope of what we do. So yeah,
Yeah.
good for you. That's the way it should be.
That's what clients appreciate. You know, I'm sure we've all done it. You walk into businesses where you know they genuinely care about what they do, and you walk into businesses where you're like, oh, they only care about their business and making money. And which businesses do you keep your personal business and relationships with?
Right.
You know, so I always try to think about things that I do in my business. I go, would I be happy with that if I was a client? If I didn't own this business, I was a client of this business, what would I like or dislike?
Yes.
And I think that's that's important to do. You know, look at what you're
Mm,
doing in your business, um, you know, as a client, not just as an owner.
yes. Thank you, Michael, for tuning in for the few minutes that you're here. Appreciate that. He's off to his lesson. Um,
Yeah.
when you were saying earlier about self-care, I think this all cycles through when we start to ask those questions and listen for their answers, we're getting a gauge of where they're at. And part of what we're doing now is listening not just to their words, but to their body.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been thinking a lot about like what you said. How do we train our clients to listen to their own bodies? You know,
Oh,
like,
that's a because I have
mhm,
some clients where, you know, I'll ask them, how are you feeling today? What does your body need today? And a lot of the newer ones kind of look at me and they're like, I don't know, like that's
yes,
your job. And I said, no, no, no. My job is not to do this for you, to feel this for you, to think for you. My job is to guide you through what you need. So you better start thinking about how you're feeling and what you need and give me
yes,
that information. And then I know what to do with it, you know?
right.
So I train them that over time. You know, I will always, and I have some clients who are like, oh, do you always ask this? And I'm like, yes. So if you know I'm going to ask you, you better start thinking of an
Be
answer
ready
when
with
you're
an answer. Yeah, yeah.
so, you know, it's again, it's just making those things that I expect of them when they start. Because I tell them, you know, I can only give you a session or what you need based on the information that you give me. If you're
Yes.
not giving me any feedback or information, I don't always know what to do with it or what you
Hmm.
need, you know, so
Right, right.
you have to tell me, you know. So I have clients who have been clients for years and like right away they're so trained. They're like, okay, my body needs this week and my energy is here and I've had this kind of day and you know, they're already
Mm,
on it. So when we start our session, you know, we got it. I already have it in my head exactly what we're
yes,
going to do.
right. And I think that is so counterculture at the same time because I know I've had times where I remember a while back I was on a podcast and the gentleman asked me a question. I answered the question, and then I realized that he actually wanted to hear the answer. If you know what I mean, like you kind of, how are you? I'm good, things are good. And but they're like, no, I actually want to know how you're feeling. No, I actually want to know how your day was. And those, like when you recognize that people actually want to hear your answer, a lot of times in those situations when people come and they give you these really, really short answers, because they know most of the time people don't care what the answer is.
Yeah, yeah. And I tell my clients, you know, it's important because it's going to help structure your session.
Hmm.
Because our muscles have a involuntary emotional response, right?
Yes.
Like think about what happens to the human body and the posture it takes on when you're sad, depressed, and tired. Everything is very sunk in, very
Hmm.
drawn in. When you're stressed and you know you're overwhelmed, everything is very rigid and tense. And so it's important to know that because it will give us feedback on what is
Yes.
happening with you physically,
Yes.
to help you
Absolutely.
structure the session. So I tell my clients, you know, early on, think about that. Your muscles have an emotional component. So
Right.
you need to be aware of how the physical and the emotional connects. And Pilates helps with that.
Big time. I was talking with our Cairo here, Oliver, and he was saying that he'll have those conversations very intentionally at the beginning of a session with a client because he can still get them get a release or all those different things, but it's a question of, are the muscles going to give way or are the joints going to give way, right? So as Pilates practitioners, as instructors, asking those questions, hearing the answers, and making the adjustments will allow us to do things right by the client. And yeah, because I'm sure you've had that too, where you can muscle a client through a workout in spite of how they feel, but
Yeah.
it's not going to really benefit them in the long run.
Yeah, and that's not the point. And that's why I think it's important, again, to continue to take our own lessons and continue with
Yes.
our own practice. And sometimes too, I think as instructors, we kind of make the mistake too of when we do our own self-practice, it's just running ourselves through our regular routine.
Yes.
And you need to stop before you hop on the reformer to do your own self-practice and say, okay, today I'm being my own teacher. What does my body need? I'm not just going to run myself through my routine. I'm going to teach myself.
Yes.
You know, that's the important thing.
Right.
And
Exactly.
so I actually kind of got in the habit of a while ago, you know, once a week, I do my basic, you know, no matter how my body's feeling or what I do, it's because it's important to stay connected to those exercises. And as I'm doing my basic, I'm thinking about the other exercises that I struggle with and how this connects to this or this connects to that. So once a week, because I think sometimes we just get in the habit of doing our regular routine or doing our intermediate or doing our advanced.
Right.
But every once in a while, you know, it's important to go back and for our own self-practice and care, really reconnect to, you know, the basics and the foundation of everything.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the lines that you said before, and I'd love you to just kind of unpack this, be kind to your body.
Yeah. I mean, and I think we're all guilty of it sometimes too, right? Is, you know, I always tell clients, you know, be kind to yourself. Don't push yourself past your comfort levels. Because I think right now we kind of have this culture in health and fitness where it's that whole no pain, no gain. You know,
Right.
you have to sweat, you have to be depleted, you have to be near death or throwing up. Like everything has to hurt, like, you know, to feel like you're getting the benefit out of Pilates. And that's not the point. Like, be kind to yourself. A lot of us, especially right now, we're going through enough stressful things and things going on. You don't need to beat yourself up somewhere else, you know.
Yes.
Really think about, and it's a slow process. You know, I sometimes tell clients where they're like, oh, I really want to fix this. I really want to fix that. When is my posture going to get better? And I said, if you do what you're supposed to, as frequently you're supposed to, probably 9 months to a year. You know, and we're in this culture where we're bombarded by, you know, 14-day, you know, challenges, 21-day detoxes, this and that. And so people hear, oh, this is going to be a year-long process at best. You know, some of them are like, really? But again, it doesn't set them up for failure. This is the realistic expectation.
Yes.
And you have to be kind and you have to work through it and listen to what your body needs. You know, I work with a few people who do a lot of heavy lifting, a few competitors, and, you know, they have a hard time sometimes, you know, going, okay, today I need a day off. Today my body's telling me I need rest, because they just think they have to train or do something every day. And that's the important thing is listen to your body, you know, be kind to it, give it rest when it needs to, give it a little bit more energy when it needs to.
Yes. I've had to spin that for my athletes and be, you know, and say basically like recovery is training too. Because the mindset is if I'm not bench pressing, I'm not working out. Like, no, like a movement day, a functional movement day, a Pilates day, a recovery day, that is training as well. Your rest is only, your work is only as good as your rest. So we can do this and that still counts. Like you don't have to like beat yourself up because you didn't PR on something today, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, so that's that being kind to yourself piece.
A perfect example of that, you know, the way that her body moves and how loosey-goosey she is, she doesn't really need a advanced session or something that is just too depleting on her, because she's one of those people who can get her body into all those different positions without actually getting there the right way.
Yes.
And so one time she comes in and she goes, you know, Nina, I was going to quit Pilates. And I'm like, what do you mean? Why? And she goes, well, you know, she's a gym person. Well, I don't really sweat. Things don't get sore. I don't really feel anything working too much, you know, during our sessions. And so I just feel like I'm not really getting anything out of it because I'm not feeling tired. I'm not working up a sweat. I'm not, you know, it's not happening. Yeah. And then her husband, she has a really bad back and bad knees, convinced her to go on a small hike with him, which she hasn't done in 2 years because of how much her knees hurt. And she said, so we do the hike, and on the way down, I actually feel my like abs kicking in, and I don't feel so much pressure on my knees. And the next morning I wake up and my knees are fine and they're not swollen, and normally they would be. And she goes, and at that moment, that's when I was like, okay, this is how Pilates works.
Yes.
It's not the feeling that you have when you're in here. It's the feeling that you have when you're doing other things. So she ended up not quitting, and she's still a client. But that, you know, that was kind of her moment where she's like, oh, Pilates is not about how much effort I exert or feeling sore or tired or working up a sweat. It's allowing me to do other things.
Yes. That's a great story. That's a perfect testimonial for everyone who feels like they're just not getting anything, quote unquote, out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really
And
good.
I sometimes tell clients what you're getting out of it. Like for me, you know, and I think this happens with a lot of us Pilates practitioners. For me, what I get out of Pilates is feeling quote unquote normal every day, you know, not feeling aches and pains. Sometimes what you get out of it is not feeling discomfort. You know, you really shouldn't feel your body. I don't know how to say it the right way. You really shouldn't feel your body throughout the day. You know, you shouldn't be aware of, oh, my neck's hurting, my shoulder's hurting, my hip doesn't feel. You should just move freely.
Move freely.
And so for me personally, that's kind of what I get out of Pilates at this point. And I can feel it when I miss my own Pilates workouts, you know, things tightening in my back or tightening in my neck. And so what I get out of Pilates is, you know, just being able to move freely and actually not feel my body throughout the day, just going through it, you know, effortlessly.
Right. So that's, I mean, and I guess more for our male populations who are trained to think, okay, I did an arm day yesterday, so I should feel like my arm, I could barely straighten my arm out. That meant that I worked hard yesterday. You're not going to get that same feedback from Pilates.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for guys who are like, well, Pilates is really girly, I always remind them, like, you know, it was invented by a man, right? So like how girly could it be if a dude made all this up? So, and then sometimes they're like, oh yeah, good point. Like, I'm like, you know, so it definitely has a male component considering a man, you know, is Pilates. So,
Yes.
so we would remind them of that. Then they're like, oh, okay. And it goes back to those people like that who feel like they need to work out. I tell them what you do in Pilates here will help you do those other things better. You know, it's when you're putting your body through, and I always kind of tell my competitors this, when you're putting your body through a lot of strain, right? Everything in weightlifting is compressive, right?
Yes.
And everything that you do is done with a really rigid spine, right? Like think about traditional weightlifting. The spine doesn't move. Everything is locked into place and you're just moving your arms or your legs. So whatever you do in one direction or in one way, for your body to be happy and healthy, you need to find the opposite of that to balance it out. And that would be Pilates. So if everything that you're doing is muscle isolation, restriction, and compression, then you need to find other things to do to open things up, move things, and decompress and lengthen out the spine.
Yes.
So you have to do both, or otherwise you're going to get into trouble physically. You know, your joints are only going to be able to withstand so much of that.
Right.
So I think going back to, you know, when you look at clients' daily activities and what they do, structuring their session to give them those other elements that other things that they do are missing.
Yes. That's all good stuff, Nina. I think that's the beauty of these core conversations, is having conversations with people like yourself who are just business savvy and just relational. And it sounds like you're just doing great work in your studio. Yeah,
Thank
really,
you.
really good. Do you have any?
I hope so.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, like you talk a good talk. Just kidding. No, that's really good. Can we, do you have any takeaways for our Pilates studio owners, for people who want to own a studio, those who are practicing, our teachers that are out there?
You know, for those that want to own a studio, give yourself time. Don't rush into it. Really plan accordingly. And also know your strengths and weaknesses when it comes to that. Because for example, my whole thing is not really the finance side of business, right? I'm not a finance numbers person. So I reached out to the right sources of people to work with in accounting and CPAs and finance to really look at numbers and things. Because I think a lot of times people go, oh, well, I'll just, you know, get my studio going and figure it out. You know, it doesn't work that way. So know when you need outside help and input, and, you know, to ask the right questions to people who work in the finance side of business, because that wasn't my strength. So I needed input on that from others.
Yes.
And especially right now during this time going on when it comes to running a studio, I always tell everyone, Like, for example, one thing, and I learned this years ago from one of my teachers, I don't do any marketing for my business. I don't do any social media ads. I don't do any Facebook ads. I don't do anything like that. Know what your strengths are, play to them, and your business will build organically.
Yeah.
It will take longer, but the clients will stay. Because a lot of times what happens if you have these little ploys and gimmicks to pull them in through the door, it's harder to keep them. You almost want people to find you. And I noticed when you let that happen, your client retention and long-term clients stay a lot longer.
Yes.
So it's kind of opposite of what's happening right now, because there's so many people out there who, are like, oh, I'll be your marketing coach. And here's me, the opposite, who I'm like, nope, I don't do it. I wait for the referrals to roll in. I wait for people to do their research, and I wait for them to come to me.
Yes.
And they stay,
Yeah.
they stay. And so, don't rush it. And again, the way that you're kind to your body, be kind to your business, and let it play organically, and know your strengths and know your weaknesses. And clients always appreciate honesty too. Don't pretend you know more than you really do, or that you can help them in things that you don't think you can.
Right.
And it goes back to, have a great referral network of chiropractors, personal trainers, nutritionists, whatever it might be in your area. Because clients want to feel like they're taken care of.
Right.
In what way that is.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That was the fastest 50 minutes.
It was. It really was.
Crazy. All right. I'm going to sign you off. So thank you again, Anita. That was so great. I love chatting with you today. All the best for you and your business.
Thank you so much.
All right.
All right. I'll
Okay,
see you
take
soon.
it. Yes. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please look at the names that are here in this list here. All the people who are commenting today. Black Hat Pilates, I see you. Quiet Bodies, thank you much. Patron Pilates, Lisa Reed, I'm going to see you in a few minutes for our Pilates session. That's going to be fun. See you next week. We have Derek Friday on Monday. So there's only so many Black male Pilates instructors in the Toronto area, and he's the other one. So I'll see you on Monday. Enjoy your weekend, guys, and we'll talk soon.